Now, first thing is to notice that there is still a field of tension caused by duality, caused by the polarity, a duality expressed in the polarity of healthy and unhealthy, light and dense foods, alive and less alive or not alive foods that give you energy, foods that take energy, foods that heal you, foods that are a burden to you. So there's that field of good and bad. And the good, if you stay on the path of the good, you succeed. And if you fall into just trying to satisfy your cravings and you eat the bad food, you have failed yourself, failed your mission, failed your purpose. You are a failure. And that has been always this tug of war, trying to stay in the light concerning food. And then at the same time, always failing and never being good enough, never being pure enough. And of course, when you allow yourself to eat anything, and when these cravings come, then of course afterwards you feel very heavy. You notice how you feel less flexible and very tired and very heavy. And that heaviness translates also into the mind, where there is then also no inspiration. But the inspiration also wasn't there when you were trying to be, when you were succeeding in eating very pure, yet you were training, you were constantly working. You were constantly working on holding it up. You were holding a very rigid structure of your expectations of what you wanted to achieve. And that was also exhausting because it didn't come from your natural flow. It didn't come from the here and now. And so that had to crash because you focused so much and you fought. You were putting all your effort into being good, being pure and purifying your body. Even though in the beginning, the first 2 weeks, it was like a walk on the beach. And you were like, oh, I'm so proud of myself. I can do this. This is great. And then you can see, even though that being proud of yourself is something very beautiful. That you say this to yourself, you feel this about yourself. You're like, wow, I'm doing so great. I'm so proud of myself. Yes? At the same time, what you have experienced now by going through this full spectrum, you went all the way around from being super successful to completely going into the opposite direction after those 2 weeks, is that, and you weren't aware of this to this degree before. And this is what we are bringing forth now to make it really, really, to bring it into your awareness and to really bring it home so that, you don't have to go through this experience, this extreme experience of bipolarity like this anymore. And what you notice is that when you, it wasn't really a crash, it was a decision. This time it wasn't a crash because you very clearly decided, the cravings that have just shown up all of a sudden, they're not going away. They're just getting more intense. And so you knew that you were building up resistance, and so you allowed it. And you didn't feel bad about yourself. You didn't go down on yourself or beat down on yourself. Like in the past, you felt like a failure. You didn't feel like a failure this time, which is a huge achievement. That's not an achievement of yours. It is a huge transformation that you have already gone through your previous, the previous experiences. And now you could see that. And you could also see that if you are so proud of yourself for eating so well and eating so pure and being so good to your body, supporting your body in its healing, in its purification, in its detoxing, then that way that you feel about yourself, this love that you have, this appreciation that you have for yourself, is still conditional. It's conditional because you don't say that to yourself when you're eating ice cream and pizza and bread and all the things that you normally don't have already not eaten in a long time, but now you have been eating a lot of, diving into the opposite direction. And you were bound to fall into that direction. It wasn't an accident. Because what you are cultivating is the middle path that is neutral, that is the stream flowing through the two opposite, anything that is, when I say polarized in this sense, I mean not balanced polarity, but divided polarity that within itself, because in its pure form, in its undistorted form, in its undivided form within itself, which means it's not divided from unity consciousness, it's not divided from being in alignment, in harmony with the divine coherence of flow, of natural flow. So it hasn't come out of alignment. Then the polarities, both of them anyways, they are one. They are two of one pole, yes? They are just the extreme expressions coming from the middle, coming from the neutral. And still, if they are anchored in the neutral, in their extreme expressions, in the densest physicality, they still not complete each other, because they are whole within themselves, which is the masculine and feminine principle. But one contains the other contains, they both contain each other, and yet they are the expression on their side of the polarity, left, right, day and night, and so forth, of that principle, feminine, masculine, plus minus, triangle with the tip on the top and one with a tip on the bottom. And they completely complement each other because they belong together. As soon as they fall into duality, they still complement each other, but then to that degree, not in a harmonious way. So this is where you can notice that you are still in duality when you are on the one side of purifying, only eating the light, raw, living raw foods. And that's the best, that's the good, and if I do this, then I'm proud of myself. If I do this, then I'm being good. Then I'm doing the right thing. And then I'm proud of myself. So that means that if I veer from that path, I'm already not doing good. I'm already not proud of myself anymore. And the more I veer from it, I might even be disappointed with myself. So that means that you are not in unconditional love. And if it's not with yourself, it's not with anyone else either. Your love is not unconditional. And that is the pain. That is the original pain, is falling out of unconditional love. Yes, and here we have Mother Mary, so perfect. Exactly, and then we have the angels play, yes, and then we have the 12-strand DNA. We got to show, these are the pictures now showing up on the screensaver. So, and then green Tara, okay, and so forth. Yes, so your path is actually the path that is even higher. The intention and the purpose that is even higher than purifying your body through the means of pure, alive, high vibrational food intake. That which is even on a higher vibration than that, in a higher consciousness than that, and thereby it always breaks. It's like a higher law that breaks the lower law, even though they are, in a way, they're happening in different dimensions. However, if already a part of you is to a certain degree in that, accessing that higher consciousness and living according to it, rather than the 3D consciousness of the physical body, whereas I am not saying that the physical body is only in 3D, because that is what ascension is. You are taking the body, actually you're lifting the body through your consciousness, through the embodiment of your consciousness. You are lifting the body up. And of course, there is the way of doing that with food. And however, if there is a part of your consciousness that is still not in unconditional love, then this is exactly what happened. Through the high vibrational foods that you were taking in, this was bumped up to the surface, was the part of you where you are not in unconditional love with yourself. Can you love yourself and be proud, in that sense, proud of yourself in the same way? Because otherwise, if being proud of yourself is not loving yourself, is not the same thing, then it's still in duality, and then that comes to be shown to you as well. So this is exactly what was shown to you, is that, oh, now you love yourself less. Now there's still a little sliver of you that is believing you are not as good. You are lesser. You feel bad about yourself. You don't feel good about yourself when you eat the pizza, the ice cream in big amounts. And then you want to have more and it never stops. And then you feel heavy. And you don't feel good about yourself. Now, let me ask you this. How do you think you would feel physically when you would be eating these dense foods, these dense cooked nutrient poor foods? And you would feel the same way about yourself like you did when you were eating the pure foods. Yeah, I know. Let's just keep going like this. All right. So again, imagine how you felt about yourself when you were eating the pure foods. Yes? And now imagine you would feel this way about yourself. So that means you would not judge that, oh, it's bad for me to eat these foods. And I have, of course, the direct justification, the direct proof, because I feel low when I eat them. But now imagine that your mind, your consciousness about eating these foods would completely change, and it would be the same like when like your consciousness is when you are eating the alive, raw, green, vibrant, nutrient-rich foods. You may say, well, I can't fool myself. But we are now in the realm of consciousness. It's not about fooling. Yes, it's not the same thing on a physical level. Absolutely. But there is consciousness that is the rule that breaks all rules below. It is the most powerful player. Is your consciousness. This is all arising in your consciousness. And it has the effect that it has according to how you receive it, how you see it, your perspective in your consciousness. And your consciousness is able to turn a poison into a medicine. Think about that teacher who took 19 LSD and nothing happened because his consciousness was so wide open. There was no door that they could open, that these substances could open in his mind. Think about the placebo effect. Think about the saying that thought can move mountains. This is all pertaining and pointing to the same fact, to the same circumstance or matter of how powerful your consciousness is. Think about Dr. Joe's work of healing by thought alone. These are the words he likes to use. Healing by thought alone, which means healing through your own consciousness. He doesn't talk about any kind of diet. He doesn't talk about herbs or other kinds of medicines, natural or energetic or any kind of devices. He doesn't talk about that. His whole setup and the whole way that he healed himself from being paralyzed from the neck down is, it wasn't from the neck down, but it doesn't matter, like somewhere from, it doesn't matter, not quite from the neck down, doesn't matter, completely paralyzed, is purely by his mind, which of course is also his heart heart, mind, because it's the consciousness of who you are. It's the consciousness of your soul. Bringing that through, which is always feels like an expansion of consciousness. What it is just like Rumi says, love is just to take away what is in the way of love, because the true essence of who we are is love. So it's all the limitations that we've placed on it and that we have been playing with and that we have been so conditioned into, that when we become aware of them, they dissolve, and then there is, the sky is the limit. So let's go back to, this is what came through when you decided to let go and not anymore hold on to your plan, to your intention that you had for 28 days to eat this raw food, not to hold on to that anymore, and to just let go of the reins and to let the body just have whatever it craved. And you dove deep into that other, into the other polarity of junk food, basically. Let's just call it that. And you have had this experience many times before, always feeling that you failed and you always crashed and you never had a successful cleanse. You never were able to successfully do a whole cleanse, the way it was set up to do, the way it was meant to do, and the way you wanted to do it. And you always ended up feeling defeated and ended up feeling weak and bad about yourself. Now, this is what changed this time, is that it showed you that you already came to a place of much more true self-love, because you didn't judge yourself. You allowed it to happen. But still, you can notice that there is a suffering. There is a suffering going on, and there is still a subtle layer going on of disappointment, and it's kind of like it is not surrender. It is resignation. It is giving up, but not in a sense of surrender, not in a sense of true opening, but in a sense of disappointment. And okay, this kind of self-talk, this kind of perspective and feeling about yourself, I'm never going to achieve, experience myself the way I want to. I'm never going to be able to do what I want to because I'll always fail. I'm just too weak. I'm just not good enough. Yeah, so that self-image, that feeling about yourself is still woven in there. And that is a match. That latches on to that heavy food and really works it. So that is why you are weighed down so much also by this food. And that is also what is spurring the addiction, that is spurring that craving to eat more and more and more, and it never stops until until there's either nothing left or until you feel sick. That's how it is. And it's because it's the only way you can in that moment you're shutting up that stream, because you're numbing that frequency. It's like a frequency, almost like a radio frequency, and you hear it almost like in Morse code. It's and it's a frequency that has a certain information and code, and it's a frequency that has a certain feeling, and it's feeling stuck in that feeling bad about yourself. Like, that is never going to change. It's never going to change. You're always going to feel bad about yourself. You're never going to be good enough. Da 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 da. Give up already. Face the facts. And that is a part of the string that weaves into your depression, or that weaves into your experience of that feeling of depression, And of course, this string, this weave, this broadcast wants to have all your focus on it. Let's put it this way. The broadcast itself is just a program running. It's just part of a program of your conditioning, and it's part of the egoic implant. That egoic implant that gives you a sense of separation from your soul and from God. So that developed through the input, the conditioning of this code. Yeah. And because what your true desire is to be cruising on this river that runs through it, where there is no, the neutral river, where there is no good and bad, where you are not proud of yourself, but you're also not disappointed in yourself. You're not capable of both anymore, because you are in unconditional love. That's all there is. And in unconditional love, that completely dissolves proud of yourself, because the proud only can exist with the disappointment. When there is no potential for disappointment, or for, okay, this is something I'm not proud of having done, which is also regret, and which is also shame, and all of this, feeling bad about yourself. How can you feel really good about yourself if you don't have it against the backdrop of also having the potential of feeling bad about yourself? So what your true heart's desire is from your soul is to gather all of the tentacles that you have in your earthly, in this incarnate experience, have grown into this field of bipolarity. Because there's more to it. Because, for example, in the field of, let's just call them junk foods or unhealthy foods, there's also very beautiful memories and feelings of enjoying food that you, however, deem, coming from the perspective of the other polarity, as being unhealthy for you. So you are denying yourself those. So they're either unhealthy, or, well, they're unhealthy for you, but they're also, on top of it, you don't want to eat them, even if you were to take into account, okay, this is not going to hurt me, otherwise I eat so healthy, I can make this exception. However, you don't really want to make the exception, because you also know that the way these foods are made, they create suffering for other beings. And so that's also something that you're not aligned with, that you are in, you don't want to partake in that. So there's another resistance, there's another bad on top of it. So there's always that tug of war between the pure experience of the flavor, the taste, and the eating of it, and the whole setting, the social setting around it, and then the alignment is it's not healthy, and it's not what I want to be a part of energetically. And so that's all on that side of the stream of neutrality. Let's just say, the bad foods, and then the good foods. The side that the good foods have is that when you eat them, it's always a struggle. It's always a struggle to eat them, and they're not so yummy, and they're not so delicious, and they're not so satisfying. And when I eat a lot of them, I have a detox and I feel really sick. And when I eat more of them for a longer time, at some point, my experience has been that then you go into the other direction. So why we are making this so clear is because this is both the field, and you see, one could not be without the other. So we really want to make this very clear. This is the field of bipolarity, and that's the field of duality. Whereas cruising, floating on the river of neutrality, how do you, coming from that place, your relationship, your engagement, your perspective on food is it's completely different. It's neutral. So it's neutral. So you don't have these all these thoughts in your head about it, and you don't build resistance when you are eating it. And also, you don't eat something that you are not drawn to eat. It's all completely coming from intuition. Of course, and what is available at the time, what you have available at home for you. But there is no struggle. And because when you are coming from unconditional love within yourself, of course, where else would it be? So you are coming from unconditional love, but what this meant was it's for yourself, also for others, because it's a sphere. It's there, it's as bright as it is, it's as limited as it is for on the inside and towards others. It's always the same. Always a reflection. So when you are coming from unconditional love, then you do not judge. You do not judge yourself for what you eat. And you also are not proud of yourself for what you eat. You don't need to be. It's just, I'm eating this and I'm enjoying this. And that's it. No more thoughts about it. It's the same relationship that you had with food when you were a child, before you had the experience. Yes, before you had the experience of your pets being slaughtered, basically, your beloved animals showing up on your plate. So before you had that experience, it's a very light relationship, so that the body can function from that higher consciousness and has a whole different capacity to work with these foods one way or another. Your body is the physical universe of your consciousness. So what we want to support and what we want to guide you to is that you get out of your head with the foods. Get out of your head and into the feeling of it. And into the joy of it again. And that it completely doesn't matter if that means, how long you're going to go into that other direction and continue to eat junk food. It completely doesn't matter. You see, because it's about you getting to the point where it doesn't matter. And then you can override that heaviness that comes from eating dense foods. You will not be pulled down by it anymore. Because the stress is in your mind. The stress is in your mind completely about the foods. And then you are not focused on the joy of life, on the flow of life. Then you are so focused on all of your attention and energies is on trying to find a way to be healthy, and it's just sucking up all your energy, and that's why you feel so heavy. And you still judge that it's less good for you, it's bad for you eating this junk food, and it's the judgment that makes you feel really heavy. If in your consciousness and you would be light, and you would thereby allow your spirit to come through as you're doing right now. You're not thinking about it, and even though your belly feels a little bit, now that you're thinking about it, a little bit more heavy than when you were just eating raw foods, it's not really in the way. And eventually what's going to happen is when you take your focus away from the physicality of the foods, and which means the how much nutrients do they have, this is good for you, this is not good for you. No, when you take that away and you approach it again with how you would approach it as a child, like what do I want to eat now? And don't put a label on it. Don't judge it in any way. Not even in the way of, I'm supporting an industry that creates suffering, that, I'm partaking and supporting an industry, yes, that creates suffering for animals. Don't even take that into, because of course that is your truth. But to come to your truth, which is this neutral zone, and that's the thing, when you are on that neutral zone, you will not at all be attracted to low vibrational foods, because the neutral zone, when there is no judgment against what you eat, when you are completely relaxed about the foods that you eat, first of all, then you won't overeat. There's not going to be this, oh my gosh, I can't get enough. There's not going to be this addictive behavior, because the addiction only shows up because you went into the other direction of wanting to be so pure and achieving that purely through a physical path, which will then, of course, which is fine, which will then, as you walk that physical path and you achieve a high frequency, which you experience was a very, very lovely frequency, very peaceful frequency in your body. When you achieve that, it's going to bump up against where your consciousness is not a match to that yet. And that's why you crash, because you literally bumped against your own limitations in your consciousness, your own ceiling, where there was still that potential of feeling bad about yourself if you don't eat this kind of food that is so high vibrational. So that is a limitation of love, and that is conditional love. So that is where you are still stuck, or where you are still running conditions on love. And so this is what has then come into your realization. Okay. And it is about loving both the same, because you can see now clearly that it really doesn't matter. It's all about, whether you eat so pure or whether you eat junk food, because it was both necessary to go into one extreme, then because of that fall into the other extreme, to play out these dual polarities, these dualized or divided or split within themselves, or distorted polarities that were still distorted, that are not yet in unconditional love, not yet in balance within you. To play that out, to bring that imbalance within you, that conditioning on love within you to your experience, and you can feel the beauty and that longing to come into unconditional love and into a neutral relationship or neutral natural flow with food. Yes, and that neutral natural flow with food, you could say it looks more like the alive, the alive foods and, the healthy foods. Yeah. However, it doesn't really have any particular structure or any particular look to it, because even when even if there are other foods coming into the mix that you would deem not healthy foods, in that mix, in that neutral state where you are of coherence, like let's say you were to eat what you deem unhealthy foods in a situation where it's what somebody cooked for you, and it's a social situation, or you go out someplace and you feel like participating in that culture and eating these things, then that is just as good. That is not unhealthy. If it's coming from this neutral place and it's naturally unfolding like that, it is not going to be unhealthy for your body. Only if you still are running the programs of resistance, and if you're still running the programs that are unconditional love, not unconditional love, but that are running on conditional love, limited love, love that isn't love, basically. It's distorted love. And so that means that they are still programs where you judge yourself, where you feel bad about yourself, where you feel guilty, and where you feel not good enough. And those are all simply programs, just like a suit that you take on, that you say is yourself. Oh, this is a suit. It's my body. No, it's not your body. It's a suit that you're wearing that you can take off once you realize it's just a suit that you're wearing. So once you realize it's just a program running through your mind that you have identified with, and that you say, well, this is the truth, and this is the truth about myself, then, if this is the truth. If this is unhealthy junk food and it does really bad things to my body, and I put that in my body, then I'm a bad person, and I'm a weak person, and I'm a loser, and all of these things. And so I need to feel bad about myself. See, that's that logic building on each other, on itself. That is part of that conditioned mind. That is part of a stream of consciousness that is not seeing itself for the truth of what it is. That is in an illusion, in an illusionary dream about itself, and it's a stream of your consciousness. And that is what pulls you so down when you have that, and then it latches onto the food. Then it really pulls you down. You see, and it's all about really recognizing that stream when it's triggered, when it happens, and it can only be triggered. So when you go into that, when you fall into that addictive mode and crave junk foods all of a sudden, which you of course haven't done in craving junk foods, you haven't had that in like over a year, like long time, maybe 2 years even. But now it turned up because you went into the so positive, into the, into the good, into the so good, into the so light. But it's the good still on the plane, in the game of the distorted, divided, split from alignment with source polarity. And in that, the good is not truly better than the bad. Because they are both part of the same. It's like two sides of the same, exactly, two sides of the same coin. One can only be so good and so light because the other one is bad, creating that experience, that tension field of struggle and addiction, and on the other side, purity and health, radiant health and goodness, and so forth. So now don't compare yourself. There are many people, they do really well. They do fantastic on that field. They're like really doing great, only playing in the field of being like radiantly healthy and eating a certain, like the highest vibrational foods and all of this. However, no, we cannot know that you should never compare yourself to anybody. You find your truth within yourself. And it's not working for you. It never has worked for you to go that route, to mimic that plan and say, okay, I'm just going to eat the healthiest foods. I'm just going to be really, really strong. And then I will feel great, and I'll heal, and I'll have energy and all of this. It never has worked when you have taken that approach, which is the approach on the purely physical level. But it has worked, of course, because it only didn't work according to the plan on that physical level. The plan is any kind of cleanse or so is only coming from the perspective, from one perspective of your being, and that is simply the physical anatomy and the physical anatomy of the foods. But who is to say, okay, yes, who is to say you have moved to that degree already beyond looking at life only at that physical level, so that it cannot work. And you have moved beyond so that most of yourself, the desire to be whole, which is to recognize your wholeness, which is to dissolve what is in the way of your true love, of the love that you are. That is your strongest attractor. And that's so that's what is guiding you. So for you it will not work, and at the same time it does work, because every time it brings you back to the realization, deeper and more clear, when you go about like your health, wanting to be of radiant health and feel good, and if in your physical body, to actually feel that peace that you were feeling when you were eating just the raw foods. You want to get to that point of feeling all that peace. However, how can it be sustainable? It can only be sustainable when it doesn't come from the mind, and you are going to now do this 28-day cleanse, So it's like this program that you're going to do, and it's just a physical thing. No, it's only sustainable when you throw all of that out of the window. Okay, take that for a moment. You throw all of it. Any concept about food, you throw it out of the window. Any thought about, what is in the food? What made the food? Is it partaking, animal? Is it partaking in animal suffering? What not? Yeah. It has to go. You have to make a blank slate. It has to go out the window in order to come back to the neutral, and not have this whole, layer upon layer upon layer of meaning and interpretation and perspective on what kind of food this is and what it's doing to your body, and all that you learned about what foods do what to your body. Throw it out of the window and come back to a quiet mind, and simply let the body again choose what it wants to eat. And it's possible that in the beginning it'll still be a while of junk foods and animal foods like dairy in the beginning. Why? Because there's still a taste for it, and because there's still a resistance there, and what it's about is it's bringing you through this whole process, taking you through this process so that you can dissolve your resistances, and for that they have to show up. So all the resistances have to show up, so that when your body is drawn to eat these like a ice cream, and you're like, I don't want to partake in dairy, then you can feel that, okay, I'm having this thought, I don't want to partake in dairy. That thought has a frequency in your body, and you're already eating that frequency when it's just there and while you're eating the ice cream. So the ice cream is not going to have that good of an effect on you. And it's all about dissolving that filter, that frequency, That doesn't mean that you don't care about the animals. It's the opposite. Because when you come into your neutrality again, and all that struggle with food, so you come out of the polarity, you come out of the duality, of that bipolarity, into the single stream of peace, of no struggle, but then there's also no judgment on the food at all. It's just the immediacy of the eating it and the tasting it, and it's just the allowing the body to what does it feel, what does it want to have. And even if that's what you deem as unhealthy food, throw that label of it being unhealthy, throw it out, because as you allow this process to happen like this, without any filter, without any meaning, without any label, without any judgment, naturally over time, your body will lose the that draw to actually even have that in itself, the unhealthy or the more dense, the lower vibrational foods. It's just because what happens is, as you let go of the judgment. And as you completely go back into a neutral field, which is like children, most children have, the way you had it before that experience. Then at the point where you are now, you will not actually, that's how you dissolve the addiction, is by completely allowing yourself and letting go of all the judgment. That's because then what happens is in your consciousness is finally free, and it's carefree. That doesn't mean you don't care, because in that carefreeness, in that lightness, you naturally will be drawn to the foods that are high vibrational. And that doesn't include then the any product that has had animal suffering as part of it. But it will be coming from your body, it will be coming from your taste, from your flavor. But it can only get to that point when you let go of any kind of constrictions, any kind of labels, any kind of judgment. That's how you come to that place. It's because also you need to uproot, you need to meet. So it has to be triggered. Every part of you that is still in that bipolar realm and judging the bad side of the bad foods and judging yourself for eating them, that has to be completely dissolved. And the only way to do that is by eating them, and by then becoming aware of those thoughts that you have about eating this food. In the backdrop of consciousness, that the perspective that we are showing and that we are elaborating on right now, that higher perspective of consciousness that is coming from your soul. And this is about embodying your soul. So you no longer eat from that understanding of the third dimension, and all that chemical data, that chemical information about this does that, and this is not good for the body, and this is what the body needs, and this is what that body part needs, and this is what takes that bad part out of your body and what cleanses it, and so forth. There's like this whole plethora of information there, and you just throw that out completely because you don't need it. The soul doesn't need that. The soul doesn't need that information. Yeah? And that is this middle way. That is the neutral stream. Is your soul. Your soul is cruising on the neutral. Your soul has no problem. You see? And that's, you can't make yourself be like your soul. However, what you can do in order to embody your soul, in order to feel more from your soul, be more aware from the consciousness perspective of your soul and your higher aspected, self, is to become aware of all those self-negating, truth-negating, truth-distorting, feeling not good programs, conditionings of the mind, which are beliefs about yourself and beliefs about food. And that doesn't mean that on the level of physicality, there is not truth to this. Yes, this is a poison for the body. Yes, this is a healing, this brings healing to the body. There's truth in that, absolutely. But there is, in the context of your own well-being and your own health, there is a higher truth. There is more to it than just going by that third dimensional modality of well-being and health, physical health. Because you already transcended so much. You've already opened up so much and let your soul in so much that you can't go about it that way anymore. It doesn't work. As you can see, it doesn't work. What wants to be discovered and brought to light is all the self-defeating, all the labels, all the judgments. Because any judgment you have, if you have a judgment on, oh, this is bad food, when you eat it, then of course you have a judgment about yourself putting that bad thing into your body. It's like one thing. So to come to this place of freedom with your with the food that you eat, with eating, when you come to a place of complete freedom, a complete freedom is also this carefreeness. And then you can then when you are aligned with your soul, you live in a way that naturally cares, that naturally supports the living light of its environment, of animals, of the earth. It's natural because your soul is made of that love. Everywhere where your soul is free, is itself, is awake to itself, it is 100% purely in alignment with source code, with God, with the divine spark of light, with Christ consciousness. And it's not achieve, but when you open up, because now you understand what really wants to happen here. So when you go about it in this way, and you allow, and watch, observe, where these negative thoughts about food arise, and thereby then they will also be negative about yourself when you put that food into your body. Okay? So that's not neutral. And simply by observing that and coming from the deeper knowing that from a neutral standpoint, this is perfectly fine, this moment. This moment is perfectly fine with me putting this into my mouth. Why? Because I am becoming aware of this program. I am becoming aware of this conditioning. That is a frequency that is running in me, and the only way I can unravel and dissolve this frequency that is being broadcast through my system and has an impact on me, because I'm identified with it. But I can only be identified with it saying, oh yes, that is true, and that is true about me, when I am not aware of it, when I'm just taking it for granted and just letting it cruise a lot, be there with me as me. But when I am now coming from this higher awareness, this higher consciousness, this deeper truth about existence, about my being, yes, then I am grateful in that moment for that experience, for that exact situation. Okay, it's like it's like mid-stroke of putting a piece of chocolate in my mouth. I'm noticing that, whatever, oh, this is not good for my liver, I shouldn't be doing this, my poor liver, or whatever that is, right? And then I can hone in and feel that thought. How does that thought feel now that I'm eating this chocolate? And apparently I'm putting it in my mouth because that's what my body is wanting to have in its mouth right now, okay? Doesn't matter why. This is what my body wants to have in its mouth right now. And these are the thoughts that are riding now in my consciousness. So that they're riding in my being. And this is now that they have been triggered, I can feel them. What do they feel like? And I can literally feel the frequency of these thoughts. Whoa, they pull me down, and they pull the whole experience down. Okay. And that's how the chocolate now is going to, because the frequencies, those are the ones I'm entertaining. It's like I'm eating them, and that's how they're getting more. That's how they're getting, not more, but they're getting, if I don't see them consciously and I'm not aware of them and I just let them roll by, then I am justifying them every time, and I am fortifying them. Exactly. I am fortifying them. But instead of fortifying them, I am now taking that opportunity to say, there you are. There you are. Thank you for showing up, because that's the only way I can love you back home. That's the only way I can heal you. That's the only way I can actually dissolve this distorted frequency. And when all the distortion leaves, by feeling it like, there you are. Oh, and that's all. You're just being the space for it. You're just being the conscious space for it, and you just feel it, and then it dissolves. And what's left is more space, because that's what it originally is. It's neutral energy that's been distorted into a negative. And there's also this distortion into a positive, which would be, this is better than, this is really good, which makes you then feel really bad about the bad, right? So, and also this is really good means there's a potential of really bad. And that's a distortion too, because it has a potential of falling. And if you're really, really good, then the potential also is that you're not good anymore, that you fell out of that realm of being good. And when the truth is in neutrality, it looks like, okay, so wait. So you see, these distorted potentials, these distorted thought patterns that are still there, that haven't been dissolved yet, they're the ones that get really, really loud. Yeah, when you eat this, when you put yourself on a regimen of eating really high vibrational foods, and it makes your body vibrate so high that it makes that which is not in harmony with that high vibration, so the low distortions, which of course can only be there because the other side of, the polarity is also there, is I'm proud of myself, right? So those are two sides of the same coin. And it really makes them really, really loud, and makes them louder, and it makes them louder. Because the frequency, the high frequency, is pulling these low frequencies. These are negative thought forms about myself, and it's where there is no unconditional love. There's only conditioned, which is not love. So it's distorted love. Pulls that up, makes it really loud until this becomes unbearable, and this wants to have its fix. These lower frequencies then look for a matching food that will actually, the funny thing is that on the one hand, they sedate so much that for a while your whole body is occupied with this with digesting this food, that for some moments you don't even have the energy to feel bad about yourself. so but then of course at the same time, that's why it's addictive. At the same time, then the pattern is really bought into. It's really triggered, because now you fell, right? You fell from being proud of yourself to being really disappointed with yourself, which is again a really low frequency, and that's now running strong, and that's looking for its match again, its match. So you're going to be attracted to low frequency foods. So it's always, it's always a snake biting its tail. It's always a loop folding in on itself, and so this is an addiction, right? This is now you fell into addiction, and it seems like the more that you allowing is already starting to dissolve the addiction. So if you are falling for the addiction, it's actually it's kind of like the more you eat these bad foods, the more you feel bad about yourself, the more you want to eat more of these bad foods. So it's like that downward spiral, right? However, that downward spiral can only happen because you went on an upward spiral. And because your consciousness is opening up to your soul, that's where you're at, is embodying your soul, waking up to your soul. And your soul is neither on an upward nor on a downward spiral, which is just, again, two sides of the same coin. It's not in that pole. It's observing it. And it is completely free of that. It is free of that, and it is cruising on this. A river runs through it. Yes. And so how do you get to pull those aspects of yourself out of those two poles, which also means that you're not going to have a desire to do any kind of special, well, it's like this. You may have a desire to cleanse or so, but not even, no. Let me see. When you are coming from your soul, everything is immediate and free to choose, whatever the body feels like. When you are coming from the soul, you are naturally high frequential and free of addiction, and you will be attracted to foods that are of similar vibration. Yes. So that is how you also dissolve addiction. And with that, you dissolve that desire, which is coming from a need, a feeling of the need to cleanse your body, to optimize, your health, to heal yourself that way. Heal yourself through some kind of regimen, to do cleanses, to go on certain, to say, okay, I'm going to do this regimen now. I'm going to do this cleanse now. And for this amount of days, I'm going to hold on to this. That's not the soul. The soul doesn't act that way. It would only act that way in saying, okay, I'm going to do this, if it's something that every step of the way you would enjoy. That's different. If it comes from your joy, and then there's no part of it as a part of the mind, because this is good for my body. I want to do this because I want to heal myself. There's never a means to an end. It's always immediate and one, and coming out of a feeling of, just like a child, this is what I want to do. This feels good. This is in the flow. It's always free. It never doesn't need healing. It's not worried about health issues. It's not worried about pain. That's why when you are soul embodied, you don't have pain. You have space. The more soul embodied you are, the more you are coherent within your body, and everything can flow optimally, so you have space. And so nutrients can be optimally received, and toxins can be optimally neutralized and taken care of. Because the whole system, the perfection of the body can work at peak performance. And if you feel like playing with this supplement or with this food or with this herb, because you just feel like taking it. You feel like it's like something you want to play with in your body. You want to bring it into your body and see what you feel like. But it's a natural, you are naturally reaching for that. It's not a means to an end. That's the thing. It's not a means to an end. It's because your body is reaching for that. Then you'll do that. Okay, so for today, I think we should complete here. So we can go out a little more and move, because you see now the body wants to move. This doesn't come from, oh, I should move because that would be good for my body. No. This is now your body saying, okay, let's go outside. I want to go outside. All right. Thank you so much, my beloved. And we shall sojourn quickly, soon again, to really bring this home if it hasn't already completely synced in. This is a wonderful journey. I'm so happy you're getting it.